Dr. Heck, I want to thank you for making the time. I wanted to share something that I've been refining and get your perspective on it. When I look back at my experience in the Stanford magnesium ibogaine study, what stands out isn't just the intervention, it's the structure around it. The published January 2024 data showed significant symptom reductions at 1 month in the special operations veterans who completed the protocol. That's meaningful. But what I keep thinking about is the durability.
Mhm.
Before the study, I had normalized hypervigilance and alcohol use to the point where just would tell people, this is who I am. You sent me to war 11 times and this is what I get. And I would blame everybody but myself. But I would do it in a humorous manner where I would leave people wondering if I was joking or if he's being serious. So I wasn't thrown in everybody's face, but I was clearly aware that I was having a drinking problem and I was making light of it by making stupid comments like that. Once I went through a formal evaluation with the SOCF trifecta study personnel and Dr. Nolan Williams paperwork that I had to fill out and the study, the cohort information that they were following along with the data that we would present to them, I started feeling like it's not an identity. And I was looking at it. This has a measure. This I can measure the stuff that's going on inside of me. There's something else to this. It's not just now I'm going to be a drunk because I went to war a whole bunch. So before the flood dose, I would receive weekly phone calls from a coach, which I had mentioned in our previous discussions, and a therapist. And the therapist had done at least one ibogaine flood journey, and the coach had done several ayahuasca journeys. So they were they were helping me understand what I was getting myself into on a whole nother level. I couldn't have received any better support. It was such a great idea. I don't know who came up with it, but I completely think we should sustain that for the
How
future.
soon before your journey did that start? Like a month out, 2 months?
So the journey was November of 2022. You back that up 4 months.
Hmm.
That's when HRT started.
Perfect.
HRT was first. So they got my hormones up to snuff. Over the course of 2 months, they got me dialed in to a solid base of peak performance. At the end of that 2 months, so July, August, September is when I flew into San Diego and started doing my 6 weeks of magnetic resonance therapy at the Cardiff Brain Performance Center right there outside San Diego or Del Mar. So for 6 weeks post beginning HRT, every morning for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I would go into the Cardiff Brain Performance Center and knock out my MERT and then go hit the gym and carry on for the rest of my day. We were instructed and followed, no drinking, no drugs, no late night partying, no running around acting like operators on a long leash, so to speak. Everybody was dialed in and everybody was following the protocol that they had put in place. So there wasn't any outside distractions for the most part. Um, we even had our family members come and join us for a week or two
Oh, neat.
because it was such a long distance. It was a long road, and it was a concern of mine because of my past that I just didn't want any naysayers out there worried about Scott swinging from chandeliers at all the bars in Del Mar instead of focusing on healing. And that wasn't the case. The healing was taking place, and I think that the phone calls were important. So going back to those, the phone calls were starting about a month after HRT. So
Great.
I almost, if I'm not mistaken, I had almost 3.5 to 4 months of weekly calls with the coach and the therapist, and they were separate from one another. And through that, my coach she focused more on my intentions. And I had never heard anybody talk about my intentions to the level or degree that she had. It didn't really kick in until she gave me her testimony and laid it all out where she was at. And what helped her understand the process was you don't want to carry your traumatic stuff with you for the rest of your life. You're trying to resolve it to some degree within yourself. And if you're not going to dial deep into those crevices of traumatic thoughts and stress and pain and sadness, if you don't bring those to the light and identify them before you go into the medicine may go handle that on its own, but the whole universal scope of it isn't going to have as much effect initially, I believe. I think you're still going to get the healing through it eventually, right? But I think it may take longer over time for that to come to the surface because you haven't really dug deep inside yourself to pull it up.
Right. I think it's a matter of being open, being vulnerable to that level of feeling, right?
Correct.
Yeah. It'll give you what you need, but not necessarily the depth that you may want.
Exactly. So those weekly calls with the coach and the therapist, they helped me clarify my intentions and what I wanted to release and what I wanted to build, what I wanted to gain. And I gave the intervention some direction. And it started to put clothes on this whole, I like to use that as an analogy, but it gave me my cry. I mean, I took off my cry battle uniform and I was wearing a business casual collared shirt. I was starting to become a little bit more involved on a different level of just, oh, I was good at what I did and I can't do that here because we're not at war everywhere. And now what am I going to do? Loss of identity and so on and so forth. But in the beginning of this study, this structure that was starting to form itself within the coach and the therapist and Dr. Nolan's team. And as I started learning more and more about MERT, the HRT, then MERT, and then Ambio, those folks at each of those three locations were adding to the structure that was starting to form around me that was allowing me to release the tension build up from all those deployments, from all the loss and all the sadness and all the close calls, near death experiences. It was, instead of black and white, I had color and I could see it and feel it and touch it. And I was starting to understand a little bit more each day as I woke up. It's another day I'm not drinking. It's another day I'm open to this new thing that's starting to form around me. And I'm trying to put into words what that is. Can you help me out?
It's just really setting the stage. It's peeling back those layers in the walls.
Exactly.
Yeah, that you
And
just don't otherwise get a chance to do. So, yeah, I think especially that level, I think I had only had 2 sessions with a coach. So I think hormonally setting you up for success and then doing the MERT with the healing for the nervous system just enabled you to rock Ibogaine.
I think it did for sure.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to formalize is pretty simple. It's a flood dose. If the flood dose can interrupt entrenched patterns and operators, it's top of the tier of guys out there fighting the old war, then preparation and integration have to be treated as load-bearing components, not optional add-ons, so to speak. So stabilize first, intervene under supervision, integrate with structure, and measure that over time and give those results to the individual patient. So the data starts to collect the moment that you've run someone through the vetting process.
Hmm.
You're going to identify what they're self-medicating and how, okay, now we're going to start a plan to help you wean off of that as we push through, as we lead into those months. So I would say 4 months out, we identify a prospective operator who needs this treatment and we start to assess them medically with whatever interventions need to take place from self-medication. In my case, it was alcohol. Integrate with structure, a, an, an acceptable and achievable approach to, okay, we got to wind this down. Do you need to incorporate AA, or are you still in control of it to a certain degree that you can manage yourself and agree that there's no more drinking while you're going through this program? Majority of us, we all said, okay, we agree and we're going to hold each other accountable. We weren't perfect, but we did a good job. And so did the rest of the teams that came in behind us. So, without the sequence, I think it relapses. I think the risk is a lot higher for relapse. And I only have 2 cases of that from folks that I know were in the group of 30 that ended up having a relapse, which I'm not going to go into details on, but that's not too shabby when you think of it as just the clinical approach. 28 that I know of are still successfully sober, have moved on to a certain level, have 180-degree better outcome with, they're still married, their children, everything has shifted. The chain of events that can change everyone's life that you have influence over is phenomenal to see it. And it's only been 3 years from my perspective, from my observational point. But watching my kids and my wife, what do you call it? They settled down. So my hypervigilance was off the charts. So clearly they probably had theirs up a little bit.
Sure. Vibrationally.
What dad's up to.
Yeah, they're
No,
going to match you where you're at.
and I didn't see any of that stuff because I was at peak out of control hypervigilance during the beginning of all this stuff. the beginning of all this amazing work. What drove my participation even deeper was the structure that I was starting to see, because I grew up in a very rigid environment in the military. The Ranger Regiment is, you do your best every day, you're evaluated every day. And if you don't do your best, whether you suck at it or not, if they don't see you giving it 110%, now you're going to draw the wolves.
Right.
And you're going to get some attention that you don't want. So when it comes to healing, when I was reaching out to folks after I got back, not understanding what we're discussing right now, I was just throwing out every testimonial I could think of to try to explain to them that you just got to go do it. And rather than doing that for the rest of our lives, I wanted to structureize like an SOP, a standard operating procedure for prospective operators, because I'm going to stick with the veteran side of the house. That's what I know. But this could
Right.
go with law enforcement. This could go with firefighters, first responders, ER doctors. I'm sure they have a lot of shit they're dealing with. High level therapists that are in role 3 hospitals dealing with, supreme high level psychoactive components. Those folks that go to a padded cell could probably use some of this structure to help them calm down. So I think this could be used a lot, in all walks of what you're good at.
For sure.
So anyways, from your perspective, how do you currently think about integration in terms of long-term durability?
I think so, and you probably noticed this. There's different phases. Once you have that flood dose and that journey, it evolves, so to speak. That post integration evolves, and then it just becomes behavioral, and it's part of who you are. So I think maybe one of the big misconceptions is that you don't want to do any spiritual bypassing. Like, I'm healed now, so I'm good. You just have to keep doing the homework and make that more of a uh, chronic neurophysiological, spiritual, constant change and choice.
Good way to
Those
say it.
little micro commitments, just, what's, one habit that you can release, or how do you show up differently for a relationship every day? And then at the end of the week, was it grounding? Did it feel natural? Was it forced? Am I being true to who I am, this new version of myself? And then, just kind of settling into the new you, not clinging to an experience as the identity. So,
But
yeah,
what I noticed early on, I could not stop describing what I saw.
right.
This fantastical visual experience that blew me away. But I was focusing more on that than the healing aspect of everything, because it was just a shock to my entire system, right? Not just what ibogaine does by flooding the neurotransmitters and repairing them the way it does. Um, it was very spiritually connected to stuff that was far deeper than I had ever read about. I mean, that's probably a discussion for another day. But if it's bringing up visuals in the realm of the Ophanim, which is biblical angels, I didn't have any idea about, there must be some ancestral connection within our own body to draw that experience. Because the bark on a root doesn't come with a playbook per se, right? I didn't pick that DVD from the root to go watch. I ingested it and it brought this visual experience to my purview, right? And some folks, like I've listened to other people that have openly discussed their experience with ibogaine on a flood dose. And Lamar Odom I kind of related with his experience to some level, having discussions with my dad, who had passed away years before, and these blue-hued angels, these 3 women that came down in the beginning when the ibogaine really started kicking in. After I was flying around over the green grid, I saw the first woman figure come down out of the nowhere, just lit up in a blue like hue is the best way to describe it. And I'm like, oh, what's this? And a little kiss on my cheek and then gone. And I was like, what is that? And then another and another. There's 3 of them that came down and did the exact same thing. And I'm describing them to Jennifer after I got back. And I'm like, I had never met her mother before. She passed away before Jennifer and I met.
Oh,
But I'm telling you, I described her to Jennifer. And she's like, that was my mom.
that's so cool.
It was nuts. And I'd seen pictures of her, but I had never met her.
Yeah.
The second one, I'm like, I felt like it was my mom, but it was like a feminine, clearly. And the third to me, it was Jennifer. And after that, there was some downtime, so to speak. But then that's when the first crazy looking wheel thing came into view. And I described that later, like a year and a half later. And Jennifer shows me on her phone, like, are you talking about this? I'm like, yeah, it's exactly that. To some level, that's what I was looking at. And it was freaking me out. I thought it was a demon or something. I've thought and chewed on it for a bit. And I think what the medicine was trying to get me to understand is that you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to either, dwell on those for the rest of your life, or you're going to learn from it. You're going to hold yourself accountable, and you're going to move past it and correct course. That's kind of how I took it.
Sure.
But without going off on another tangent, the SOP structure has got to implement. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is this tiny pilot that we did with Dr. Roland Williams proved a lot of stuff. It proved a 30% reduction in anxiety. It proved a 70 something limit. I don't want to ad lib. I got the actual percentages written down here. Let me pull it up real quick. Sorry.
Well, it's so neat because there's measurable outcomes, whether that's on
Yeah.
a brain scan, blood work, surveys. It's measurable, and it's over and over and over again consistent with that, which is just so incredible to me. That's what drew me, is the scientific support of it.
Exactly.
And then, you got that to throw in to make it even cooler. You have that innate, almost magical component of that root, knowing what exactly you need and connecting you to the divine. Just wild.
Did your experience sort of dibble dabble into those spiritual realms as well, or?
Yeah, 100%. I saw God a few times, and I saw Mary. I got hugs from them, and it was crazy. I was bawling. I'm not a crier. I'm just not a crier in my whole life. And so my purge was grief. I cried the whole 8 hours I was in it. But yeah, just that it's okay, and the forgiveness. That's what came across to me, is I was forgiven. So it was really cool.
I think I had a similar. I always thought I wasn't good enough growing up. It was some kind of connection I didn't have with my father. I was missing something, and I always felt like, well, I got the best mom on the planet. I'd rather have that.
Sure.
But deep inside, I needed that masculinity, as a boy. And so I, was resourceful and not used, but looked up to my best friends, older brothers. Jason and Brett were my pseudo half father, half big brother across the street. When I messed up, they would correct it. And instead of hugging me, telling me, you're going to do okay, like, Mom,
Right.
give me the testosterone laced version of that.
Which you need, right? You need balance.
Need a good slapping every now and then. But so going back to the study, just so folks can understand, those 30 guys, those 30 special operations veterans with a history of traumatic brain injury, we all went through the magnesium ibogaine therapy mystic protocol. And the key findings at 1 month after treatment are huge. PTSD symptoms were reduced by an average of approximately 88% compared with before treatment. All this data that I'm sharing with you was released January of 2024 by Dr. Nolan's team. Depression symptoms were reduced by 87% on average. This is 1 month after starting HRT back in July with Warrior Health Foundation, and I'm still on it. For the rest of my life, I will be taken care of by them for being a part of the study. But I'm saying it for emphasis because I believe, not just because I did it, they switched up the protocol sequence throughout the study to see if they had better effects, so to speak. But just the data alone tells me it makes a lot of sense to get your hormones where they should be at peak performing levels after decades of, destroying your body and your mind and fighting and doing your thing. You could see how this correlates in the ring with fighters or professional athletes and the high level stress that they go through to stay in a paid sport at the top of the game. That's got to be pretty darn stressful. And then you incorporate the magnetic resonance therapy. You get your front of the brain talking to the back of the brain. I felt empathy coming back. That prepared me even more to receive medicine. And I believe without a shadow of a doubt, just those two treatment modalities leading up to my visit down to Ambio created a hell of a lot better result than just going down there, knocking it out, and then flying back home and going back to doing my day to day. Anxiety symptoms were also reduced by roughly 81% on average. So we start off with PTSD symptoms dropping about 88%, depression going down about 87%,
And a lot
anxiety.
of medications are only effective 42 to 70% with depression.
Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, crazy.
Because I was on all kinds of stuff when I first retired. Zoloft, 200 milligrams, I
Oh,
think, or
that's a
maybe
yeah,
100 milligrams.
it's a strong dose.
Whatever the max dose is, I think I was on it. And it took a good year to wean myself off, or not wean myself off, but having my psychiatrist get me off of it. It took about a year because you can't just stop. Stopping serotonin in the brain or something like that. And if you just immediately quit, you could go through some problems.
Recommended.
And the functionality disability is measured by the WHO Disability Assessment Scale. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
Sure you are. I wasn't. And it improved dramatically from an average score indicating mild to moderate disability before treatment to a level indicating minimal or no disability after 1 month. I wish we had 3 year post treatment data to go by, but this is just 1 month after. And whether they digressed a little bit after that, I can tell you right now, I still feel better than I did when I began to hear about the study and hadn't committed to it yet. It's night and day how much better I feel as a person and as a father and a husband and a citizen in America here. I don't think that I need to go to war anymore. I don't think that's the end game for Scott. I think the end game hasn't been decided for me yet. I think that sharing the experience and trying to create a standard procedure pre and post treatment will make these veterans, law enforcement, first responders, the results that they're getting from these experiences, I think they'll last a heck of a lot longer if it's structured just like anything else.
Absolutely. What's been successful for you as far as integration goes?
Early on, it was journaling, and the Vets Inc. did a good job of reinforcing that along the way. And I failed to, and I don't fail, I tend to not mention Vets Inc. a lot just because they're such a amazing organization and they have a huge platform. I don't want to slow anything down or misquote something that I may have it by accident. They have a very robust online support network. Once you get through it, I'm sure you've been on it. Their websites and their weekly Zoom calls and meetings that you can jump in on anytime you want. Once you've been through the the grant recipient program. Oh, but the point that I wanted to bring up with this, like you just asked, the journaling was big, which allowed me to try to help make sense. It gave me a better understanding of what the visuals were trying to help me understand as far as dealing with my own traumatic stress and my own sense of loss and trying to pick up the pieces after all those deployments and retirement and okay, I got all these diagnoses. I'm 37 different ways messed up now that I've served my country and done my thing. I made it home. Is that it? Now I just take all these pills and fade away? There's no way that's the best option. So the journaling and the discussing of the whole study was very therapeutic for me in the beginning. The first year I couldn't stop talking about it, you know, and then I felt like no one gave a shit. So I quit talking about it. And and those that really cared about me were like, "Okay, brother, we've heard enough of your
Okay.
story." That wasn't the case. They were like, "Please tell us more." I just didn't have it. I didn't have things dialed into a conversational way. I was just like, "Oh my god, it was amazing!"
Right.
Right? And I can only imagine what your back brief was like after you got through that versus versus mine, because
Yeah.
you're a highly trained individual in that world.
Yeah, I think a lot of patients when I was discussing that I was going down there, they're like, "You're going down where to do what?" And I educated them and explained the therapeutic benefits. But I feel like it was very well received, and I had so many questions from patients, and it was really cool. Yeah, and I still get questions. They still on my social media, of course, they ask about in waves and war or our last interview, or they always follow that, even though they might never go do it. They're very curious about it. So
That's good.
yeah, it's laid the groundwork.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely ground. There's one or two more things I wanted to mention about the 1 month follow up. Yes. So cognitive performance tests showed
Mhm.
improvements in our concentration, information processing, memory, and impulsivity post follow up, that was the biggest noticeable difference when I got home, especially with the kids,
Mhm.
because some of those entrenched, old habits, just walking around like an old seasoned ranger, old master sergeant, those stereotypes that you read about in books back in the day. I was living it. And for some reason, I thought that was who I needed to be, right? It's the way you, it's the way that you suitcase up all your things that are developed over the course of 11 combat rotations. And it's the new you just storming around with this wily e. coyote kind of persona that doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
And then it goes off. Thanks to Ibogaine and Fiving Me Out and the intricate, the network of folks around it that were trying to coach me. It's like there's more work. You got to keep working. You got to keep integrating these new things that you've discovered about yourself that have always been there, but clouded because of all the events that took place throughout your deployments and whatnot, or your childhood. I guess the biggest takeaway for some folks out there, they may need to know that there was no serious side effects or dangerous cardiac events in any of us. The only thing that I would say definitely want to know ahead of time is if you don't learn how to meditate
Yes.
before you go, you're going to have more purging than you need because the gentleman to my left was drinking he gave me his testimony. He was drinking about a bottle a day of vodka at his work, at his lowest point that led him to fly in, spend the night in a hotel, jump in the van with us, with the four of my guy, with me and plus three, go down, jump into the, the heat of the wagon with us, and then fly back and continue living his life. He showed up without all the pre-work that we had received. Okay. So he didn't get the HRT. He didn't have the MERT. He flew in from wherever he lived to do just the Iowa game with Ambio and us. He was a veteran as well. Great guy, but he purged the entire time.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is while I'm laying there scared shitless, mind you, definitely scared out of my mind. I hit it well. And, to hide that, usually I'd have a mouthful of Copenhagen and some body armor and a gun or two and a bunch of other things. I didn't have any of that. I was stripped down to nothing except some pajamas and an IV and a sleeping mask, right? Thank God the therapist that I would talk to once a week convinced me that the single most important thing he needs to do is convince me to learn and get good at meditating through breath work.
Yeah.
And I did it the entire time. It took me a few months to get the hang of it, to be comfortable with it.
Right.
Not hard to breathe, hold, and exhale, and hold and breathe and hold and exhale. And it's not hard to do it, but if you don't put in the work to actually embrace what you're actually doing, you're not going to do it when you're under the medicine.
Right. And
And it,
when I don't want to say scared, but when you're scared, you gotta kick that in, and that can be challenging.
definitely, but it worked. And when I woke up, when I finally got to the point where I could take off the mask, get up, be escorted down to my room, the first thing I did, because I was in the center of the room, so the MD's spot was right behind me where all the EKGs came to, where she was monitoring this. I just remember looking up at her like, so how'd I do, doc? And she goes, you stayed with the medicine. Your breath work was good. And I was like, okay, that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing. My poor buddy to my left, he wreathed in dry heat a lot because he was fighting it. But he had a huge smile on his face the next day when I finally got all my act together and took a shower and went upstairs to have some breakfast. He had a huge smile on his face and he wasn't talking much the days leading up to it. He was in a tough spot and his whole life's changed. He's sober as can be. He hasn't touched it since. His entire life is back on track. And I like to say that because toward the end of this discussion, I'm going to make a statement that I think you're going to agree with. And don't worry, it's not over the top, but I think the guardrails that were there to help the study stay on track should be standard operating procedure for anybody that goes down there that wants a lasting, chance at a new shot at life. If you really are going down there to put those traumatic events behind you and move on to the next phase of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, you should do the work before, during, and after. And I
Mhm.
don't think it stops, to be quite honest with you. Just sharing this testimony is reinforcing all the good habits that I was taught in the beginning of all this. So these results are statistically significant. I think you would agree. Improvements on validated clinical scales for PTS, depression, anxiety, functional disability, and cognition at 1 month post treatment. This reflects real change in symptom severity and functional status. not just as an antidote or general mood improvement. It's a structured treatment protocol that I believe should be implemented on a larger scale now that it's been proven with the brains at Stanford University and all the supporting cast. I think it should be accepted at a minimum by the military Role 3 hospitals that are already set up to handle high risk, high level psychoactive patients that are going through some stuff where they need 24/7 overwatch
Sure.
by a clinician trained to observe the human mind, I guess. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%.
Because they could observe it and do the exact same protocols that were put in place with the Mystic protocol. And if it works, great. Now we can use that as a treatment protocol instead of issuing out a bunch of pills.
Right. And again, you're addressing that root neurological connection. So why you have nothing to lose,
Exactly.
And especially now, like you said, doing the drip magnesium and the EKG monitoring and all the pre-medical workups, it's pretty streamlined with safety,
So let's try and break it down into some slides. So everybody likes PowerPoint.
right?
Slide one would be the problem. High intensity interventions show strong short term improvements. Durability and long term structure remain inconsistent. Slide number two would be published evidence. Stanford, January 2024 publication. Significant symptom reductions at 1 month in Special Operations Forces veterans under these structured conditions that we follow. Slide three would be the gap. Most models emphasize access to treatment. Few formalize preparation, integration, and this is a great word, longitudinal measurement.
Yeah.
I was doing some digging. I'm like, I need a word that only Dr. Heather Heck will appreciate. And it was
Let's say long
longitudinal.
term. Yes, longitudinal, long term. And probably in the Stanford study, you guys, so you did 1 month. Have you got that guys done a 1 year and a 3 year by now? Follow ups?
No, we did, I believe, up to a year through the organization that they had reaching out to us with all the different questionnaires and stuff like that. I haven't gotten a chance. I haven't received an opportunity to get to ask that question, like, where's the
Yeah.
follow up? Because I
Yeah.
believe that there is more information that can be released, and I
100%.
think SOCF's gonna eventually put that out to the guys that were in the study. So I'll follow up with you if I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to
Answer.
know that. Because again, that's that longitudinal perspective. Okay. Is it lasting?
I'm a firm believer it's lasting. Slide five, because we're not done yet, would be risk mitigation. Reduces relapse risk with your pre, during, and post integration. Reduces isolation for the patient.
Mhm.
Keeps them in a team environment. Gives them that camaraderie and that they're part of something bigger than themselves, and they have to hold them accountable. That's what helps the operator. It's different when you're a singleton doing your own thing. You got to hold yourself accountable, right? Which you know at the end of the mission, you're back under the big umbrella of whoever you're working under. But in this world of healing, you don't want to do it on your own. You can't. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. You need a
From my
tribe. Yeah.
can't do it. You need to try it. So yeah, it improves compliance and it generates defensible data. Slide six, your pilot proposal, because you're going to push this at your level.
Mhm.
20 participants, structured durability pilot at, we'll say, the VA hospital there in Ohio. 12-month follow up, standardized metrics. And we start off with we just mirror what Dr. Nolan Williams began with all the way through the post 1 month follow up, and then build it from that. It's a 12-month commitment. Yeah, I just said 20 because it took a while to get those 30 through the SOCF reaching
Sure.
out to several hundred operators that had to dedicate, we had to agree to dedicate sobriety and all these different follow-up questionnaires and participate fully. You can't just half-ass this. You got to go all in or don't do it at all. And it was difficult for some because of whatever they were doing for work or their current, living situation. There was a bunch of different issues that took. So that's the reason why they had to call so many guys. Everybody wants to get in there and get healthier,
Sure.
but I can't remember exactly what the protocol breakdown was that you had to agree to comply with. It wasn't super deep, but whatever the heck it was, it took a while to get 30 of us to be able to start this thing. So I think 20 would help it begin sooner. And then the outcome goal, engineer durable outcomes, right? Create scalable structure that can be processed across all the VA hospitals. They can take that and grow it and strengthen with more data at different locations, and that becomes more credible at the highest levels of the world that you're in. So, anyways,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, because as you well know, especially with healthcare, if the government approves it and stands behind it, then it trickles over into private insurance and everyone else.
exactly. And I'm not smart enough in that biz to even dip into it. I just know that a lot of money is made when you write a prescription. It
Oh,
comes as if it's a prescription that you need every month to be filled,
yeah,
to be at a better place, then there's a lot of money being exchanged. The only pushback I feel like the larger scope, I got to be careful here, 'cause I don't want to offend anybody. The only pushback that I see down the road to expand what Stanford University did would be how to put money in the hands of those who feel like they're being left out, so to speak, because we're shifting focus from these treatment protocols, the old way of helping the poor veteran or law enforcement officer or firefighter dealing with the traumatic stuff they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis versus, all right, we're going to spend the next 12 months trying this instead of your pills. I don't, to me, it sounds like a no-brainer.
100%. And, it might seem like it's more expensive from that cost perspective, but by the time you add up prescriptions, counseling therapies, in-house rehabs, all the other things, that's way more expensive over time, over the lifetime of that veteran. Just like, in healthcare, it's easier to just go and get the MRI first instead of doing 8 weeks of physical therapy if you know it's not going to work, doing a brace, doing this other stuff. If you need surgery, get surgery. Fix it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's a great, great concept for a study.
Before entering the study, from that going back to before the study was even mentioned, the hypervigilance, the loud outbursts, the jokes, the word salad that would just blast out of me in a weird moment. Like if I felt like I didn't have control of the room, so to speak, I would just blurt out some random shit that people would think was funny, and I'm like, okay, and I'd have all my senses back. It was a battle within myself trying to figure out how to live with the damaged goods that I was dealt
Sure.
when I retired. You know what I mean? And it's people say you got to reinvent yourself. It's the next phase of life, this, that, and the other. But it was way worse than that. It was I'm damaged, things aren't correct, and I'm using humor as a way to mask it.
Right.
I'm a lot quieter now. I'm
How
actually getting over here to start talking like, Daddy's a lot quieter. You know, he smiles a lot. We do homework every day. He never leaves
love
to go hang
that.
out with his friends anymore.
I love that. Did you know how bad it was before going
No.
through this?
No, the first few years that I was married to Jennifer, I felt like I was just, living the dream. I'm retired and I can go do whatever I want whenever I want. And I'm taking her with us, or I'm taking her with me. But sitting here now with the headspace and timing that I have, it was more like she was guiding me on my chaotic journey of just bouncing around like I'm a ball in a pinball machine,
Hmm.
stopping here for a moment to enjoy whatever this has to offer, and then go to the next thing and go to the next thing. I wasn't healing. We were staying busy going to concerts and bar hopping and, you know, going and having fun together, but it was always circled around short-term investment at a bar, restaurant, a resort, and then back to the day-to-day here grind at the house where I felt isolated. And the only thing I had for release was picking up the phone when a buddy needed to go have a beer and go hang out with him and drink all day and just say the same story over and over again. Woe is us. We were the best. Yeah, we were the best team ever. Oh yeah, this, so yeah, that.
Right.
Memories are good to have, but you can't live the memory over and over and over again and expect to get anywhere.
Right. Right.
Say that to me 10 years ago, I would have laughed like, whatever, hippie, I'm out of here and go jump out of a plane and spend all day shooting a gun. I put we call it a keyhole. I sat here for 8 hours and shot the same spot over and over again. Isn't that amazing? Not really to everybody else.
Right. Right.
Anyways,
Where do you think you would be today if you hadn't gone through that study?
I'd be divorced again. My kids would be at their mom's 24/7, and I'd be deployed somewhere chasing dollar signs to try to buy things for my kids that my parenting and tutelage and mentorship should have been doing versus gifts,
Distractions.
stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Distractions. And even if you could even if you could put on a disc, even though they don't make CDs anymore. I'm gonna date myself. I'll be 50 this year. If you could put what I learned throughout this study on a disc and shove it in my central nervous system somehow, I still would be a fraction of who I am now because of integration.
Mhm.
A human lived experience post plant medicine flood dose, whatever it may be, to the integration afterward. I'm still integrating things. I'm still catching myself from allowing the shadow to creep back in. But ever since I identified everything, ever since I put a name to those subconscious distractions that I didn't know anything about, the shadow, the ego, the self, I had no idea what any of that stuff was until I met Trevor and started listening to podcasts that were discussing people going through these healing journeys. That's where I started to learn what I know. And I still have a ton to discover, but discussing it with you and reading some of the remarks that people have been posting, I've been getting hit up on my Instagram by people I don't even know
I love
about how
that.
love it, about the discussion has, helped them come to the conclusion that they too want to go pursue this medicine and that they've been offered it in the past and now they're going to reach back out and say, yeah, I think I'm going to jump in there and give it a shot. That to me is success, just sharing the result. And I think I look back at the tribe that found it, okay, a bit witty,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And how they shared it. They just shared this amazing ancestral story that they've been utilizing the medicine for all these years to keep their tribe together. It literally goes back to the roots of their existence, when their shaman discovered what this little creature was eating after the wife cooked it up for supper one day and she started acting kind of strange and then threw it together. That's like the oldest technique ever for humans to discover things, right?
Oh, I
The
don't know.
process of observing actions taking place to discovering a healing mechanism within it.
No, I don't know.
Oh, gosh, what's that movie with what's his name? He's not here any longer. He passed away, but he was 007 for a long time. The British actor
Yes.
hanging up in the trees and the jungles, and he's finding things to cure stuff.
Yes.
I watched that movie a lot when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and when I heard how I think it was either Trevor or Jonathan was explaining the Witty tribe and how it was discovered and whatnot, and what they used it for, and I'm like, that's exactly what we're using it for. We're healing our warriors so they can get back to the tribe and be great additions to the community.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's definitely worth sharing. And then of course, having gone through it, you just feel this I think most everyone I've talked to, you feel called to tell others so you can elevate them.
You feel the energy of sadness that they're carrying,
Right.
and you want them to stop feeling so sad, and you want
Yeah.
them to give them a little bit of light to
Yeah.
get them out of that darkness that they're suffering under. And sometimes you gotta, when you're in it, if someone told me, "Hey, that's self-induced, man. What are you doing?" I'd be like, "What?" And I would immediately throw up all my deployments and all the shit I went through as a child, so on and so forth. But it was all compartmentalized into this cinematic. I think I made things worse than they were, but it still affected me, and I had no mechanism of releasing it and growing past it until I went through the medicine with Ibogaine and 5-MeO. And I don't like to, excuse me, I love everything, but I don't want to forget to talk about 5-MeO DMT. It kind of gets pushed over here to the side with regards to how it can help. I mean, it's definitely crucial with my whole healing apparatus, cleaning my neurotransmitters and being able to take something and completely fully feel it and process it and express myself after I get through that whole dynamic and then it moves on is huge
It's huge. Yeah.
because things used to come in and stay
Yeah.
and I could not figure out how to fully process stuff. I didn't know it until after I went through this journey. And it probably didn't register in my brain for a year and a half afterwards when I was having these little epiphany moments where I would stop doing self-destructive things and I'm like, another lesson learned or whatever, like driving like an idiot, or blowing off going to the gym for several days when I know I need to go at least a few days a week, right? To sustain good health. Little things that became like a moment in time where I just felt like, what am I doing that for? Back to the grind. But it wasn't like, oh my God, I got to hold myself accountable. It was
Right
just a
now.
shift in my mind. And now it is a natural thing for me to go to do. And I'm not going to stop and contemplate about it or whatever. I'm just going to go do what I know is healthy to go do. Like wake up and make a smoothie without all the fat and sugar.
Yeah. Yeah, it just changes every decision that you make all for the better, and you don't even realize you're doing it a lot of times.
Do you know what that is called? That thing that makes you just, it's after you go through your journey. For me, it was like a year and a half or so, a year afterwards, when I caught on to it. I'm driving, I'm like, babe, I just had another thing. And she's like, what is it? And she would keep mental notes. And when we were discovering that, like these little epiphany moments that
Yeah.
you get clarity beyond you can imagine clarity.
Yeah.
And it makes absolute, total, 100% sense to do it that way now, because the way you were doing it was not good and self-destructive or whatever. What's that thing called?
I don't know.
That's what we need to figure out.
I don't know, but yeah, it's a thing. I'll have to look into that. I don't know if it has a name.
Reach
Um,
out to your group of great minds and try to hunt that down, because I guarantee you that's probably something.
yeah, let me check with my circle.
Yeah,
It
I
is
don't know
cool.
what it's called. It's definitely something though, and it has to have a name. Like, I don't know. It's not intuition. It's separate from that.
Yeah, no.
It's like a decision point in your mind and your consciousness. So it's like an accumulation of whatever inside of us that makes decisions all agrees, and it just happens. Like an epiphany moment,
Yeah. It just feels like a little like
like a
the
Christ consciousness.
yes, yeah, or like just a little nudge from God that, yeah, why are you doing it that way? Do it this way. Or
Now
keep
that you're
thinking, you
now that
know?
you're free of all those distractions,
Yes.
you get a little
Yeah.
boop, little touch.
Yeah.
I get
It's wild.
goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah. It is
Um,
cool. It just opens it up. And I don't know. I had a student ask me the other day about psychedelics decalcifying the pineal gland. I couldn't find any research. I don't know why it wouldn't help with that because it opens up that eye. Have you found anything showing that?
Frequency. I've been I've been feeling a pull toward digging in and researching the frequency that ibogaine brings to your register.
Oh, interesting.
That frequency, I think, is a healing frequency
That makes
that
sense.
Mother Nature can provide it through that medicine to the human or to the subject. It could be an animal. I bet you this can work for some reason. I think about horses that are struggling and they just put them down because they're broke or whatever they're classified as. Put them on ibogaine. Do it. See what happens. A few days later, they probably like break track records, and I don't know. I don't think that there's any end to how you can benefit society as a whole, like digging into microdosing with ibogaine.
Right.
I know there's been some stuff put out about that. I would love to know more about it. Is there microdosing with 5-MeO DMT, or is that just so powerful?
I don't believe so because, you usually have to inhale it.
Right
But I don't
now,
know. I don't know if you could.
did you go through your dying experience like mine? Because I'm pretty sure that I was just laying there flat going through it. But in my experience, I was like, I'm dying. Oh my, I can't, like Total Recall when he runs into zero oxygen mode and his eyes are popping out of his head. That's how I felt when I was going through that experience. I look up and see Jesus standing there looking at me like, you coming or what?
Oh yeah, no, mine was pitiful. And it was funny because I asked, so my Ibogaine, it was cool because he came out as this little root guy. He was very cute. And I could ask him questions and he would give me an answer. And so at the very end, I asked him, should I do 5-MeO? Because for some reason in my mind, I was going to literally die. And my baby at that time was just 3 months old. And
Oh,
so it said, no, you're going to die. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do 5-MeO DMT. So I told our house uh, girl about it, and she goes, "Well, maybe it wasn't a literal thing. Maybe you just needed to sleep on it and think about it." So I slept on it. I'm like, "I'm gonna do it." I woke up. I'm gonna do it. I might as well finish this protocol. And so, yeah, Ruby was there, which I know we love Ruby, and I was out like she started back in 8 seconds. I was gone, and I died. It was the slowest, most painful death. I felt like everything leaving my body, like my fingertips were disintegrating. And I'm like, who's going to take care of my babies? And then I took like my final breath and I thought I died. I'm sure I just laid there. And then I thought at that point, I'm like, Ruby and the house counselor went out to get the squad because now I'm dead in Mexico. Now what's going to happen? And so I'm like, hello? And Ruby's like, yeah, we're here, take off your mask. I'm like, what was that?
So it's
But
similar.
similar, but I'm so intrigued by it that I'm going to be doing another retreat in May because I want to reach past that point. I didn't do the second inhalation because I was so scared. So we'll see.
Yeah. The second one for me was just as powerful as the first one, especially because I saw the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's
And
so wild.
I know I'm doing another journey where I'm gonna sit with Mio again in June, and I'm gonna bring the wife, and I'm gonna have her. Hopefully, not have her, but hopefully she'll want to partake. I think it'd be huge for her as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll keep you posted
Yeah, keep me posted. We can do second round notes.
for sure. For sure. I wanted to go back to my notes real quick, and I reminded myself here there was something another couple things I wanted to run through you.
Yeah, yeah,
When
absolutely.
I entered the study, yes, when I entered the Stanford study, the shift began with structured evaluation, sleep, mood, nervous system response, substance use, all formally assessed. So there wasn't any place for me to hide, you know what I mean? Within myself, within my own psyche or whatever. Everything was you had to be an open book
Right,
because you didn't know how you were going to react to the medicine. So they needed to know everything. You couldn't be hiding anything.
right.
No, whether it was over the counter or under the counter, or whether it was prescribed or not prescribed, you had to come out with this is what I've been taking, or this is how I've been dealing with said issues, which brings everything to light. Nobody likes to discuss. We were almost trained by our own people, our own society, to not talk about your mental ailments, like it was something you just don't talk about because it'll just make it worse. But it's a complete opposite.
Right.
Sitting in a room discussing what you're being diagnosed with and how it's affected your life is the first part of undoing it in a systematic, slow way that can have lasting effects. Now you can do some preparation if you say, let's just follow the protocol that I was under. So 4 months out, you start working on your inner hormone replacement therapy or whatever suits you, I guess, based on your initial assessment. And you progress through the treatment, through the medicine and the post work. I would say after a 12-month follow up, you're cut loose to some level, right? Now you've established a tribe or several tribes with folks that are in that world of medicine that whether they're sitting with you, or doctors such as yourself in holistic health, or Trevor with Ambio and Jonathan, Miss Ruby, the MDs that they had in there, even the paramedics in there were smart as whips with respect to how the stuff is treatable and used appropriately and responsibly. I think that you've got to understand it first, which we're trying to do with the discussions that we're having. But then we got to hold those platforms that are capable of growing, expanding the study. Just follow it to a T on a grander scale, larger scale with more participants across the United States, and then compile all of that data. And if it's sitting somewhere near the 80% mark, I didn't beat my fist on the table about the suicide ideation reduction, but it was like 88% or 89% across all 30 of us a month following that.
Yeah,
So
there's
if
nothing that can compete with that.
nothing, if the
Nothing.
goal is to stop veteran suicide, if the goal is to quit seeing TV commercials that talk about 22, I think it's far greater than that. If the goal is to see an end to death, an end to veteran suicide or law enforcement, firefighter, first responder suicide, why don't we grow the study? Why don't we take this study that's starting to kind of not be talked about as much? It needs to be talked about every day,
100%. Yep.
I believe. And it brings up the quantum operator concept. Do you think of quantum physics?
Hmm.
I'll try not to get sucked into this too deep, but if you take a particle and you split it and move half it over here and the other half over here, and you do something, you send a message through your AI to this particle to do X, Y, and Z, it mirrors it over here. It doesn't matter how far apart they are. The same concept, I'm seeing it in my house. The quantum operator directly reflects what his children and wife are going to be. So if I'm having a great day and my spirits are high and I'm optimistic, the wife has a great day and she's optimistic. The kids are having a great day and we all go out and have dinner and have a great day.
Okay.
The problem that I saw before that, I couldn't even get to the point where I felt like anything was optimistic or good. because I was just sucked into this dark hole.
Right.
I was the same person in the same meat suit, but everything was scattered upstairs. My heart was pumping and the desire to get better was there. I just didn't have the playbook.
Right.
I think there needs to be a playbook. You know, my memoir is more about how I got out of the depths of despair through the study and the treatment through Ibogaine and 5-MeO and the network of people that I discovered within it and the post-treatment protocol that I followed thanks to the Stanford study. You can't put into words how grateful I am. I bet without a shadow of a doubt, if you lined up all 30 guys that were in the study, that means the 2 that I know that had a relapse get another shot to go back through it. Everybody's going to say the same thing.
Mhm.
My life's improved 110%. My wife's, my kids, friends and family, my outlook on everything has changed. I see the good things versus the bad. Instead of making a no decision on something because I don't want to go change my clothes or put gas in the car. Oh my God, we got to drive forever. None of that. None of this stupid excuses that used to come about. Now it's like, okay, well, if we do this, can we add that?
Mhm.
My wife's a Tennessee girl, so she loves the Smoky Mountains. My youngest, we call her Caboose, Sierra. She asked me yesterday when we were driving, so when are we going to go see Santa Claus again? I'm like, well, in the winter, like December timeframe, maybe. And I'm laughing, and she goes, Dad. And I go, what? And she goes, the Smoky Mountains. I'm like, well, we can go there whenever. They're full love to go there because that's home.
Cute.
And
Cute.
she started off by saying Santa Claus. I thought she was talking about her dad because they call my wife's dad Santa Claus. He's got a superb beard that comes down. I mean, it's beautiful. It's white and it comes all the way down. He was a big biker in his younger days. He served in the military and he joined the post, service biker clubs. And he rocks his beard like a superstar. And I thought that's what she was talking about at first. And then we had this cool moment where we connected. Like, yeah, we got to talk to Jen about that. She's the planner. She's the senior project manager in this house. We got to get her to put that together because we have a great time every time we go up there.
That's
And I think
awesome.
it'll be a great place to have. Like if we could pick anywhere in the United States to set up a brick and mortar healing center, I'm talking with the medicine, with the cold plunges, with meditation, yoga, all of it encompassed at one campus. You got to go to the mountains.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. The
So
setting makes a huge difference.
I agree. Yeah. So running through the introduction for the pre and post integration, just to drive it home. This is what I think becomes important for flood dose medicine. Try to broaden the topic so it's not just centered on ibogaine. I think the folks that I know needed some needed what I had to recover from stuff. They used or they received the same level to some degree of therapy through psilocybin flood dosing.
Okay.
And those 3, ibogaine, MDMA, and psilocybin are the 3 that I know personally, guys that have had really good outcomes from. But the pre-phase stabilizes your volatility as a former operator guy or 30-year police veteran or so on. The flood phase disrupts the distortion that's causing all the suffering within the individual. And tell me if I'm on this or if I'm off. But post phase builds your coherence, and longitudinal tracking measures the durability. And without that sequence, the relapse increases.
Definitely.
So whatever we can structure within the community, I think those would be your foundational points that got to be met.
Yeah. I agree.
Right on.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for covering all of this and kind of digging deeper into the importance of integration.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for having me again.